for movies. It is Monday, March 8th. Amy and Samir here. Thank you all for joining us. Hope everyone had a wonderful weekend. Samir, happy Monday.
Happy Monday. Another week.
Fun this weekend?
Did I do anything fun this weekend?
Watch anything.
Well, we caught up on some more murder stories and discovered some new ones that we're gonna be binging soon.
Yes.
That SNL skit was just right on.
Oh, the murder! Yeah, he's like
murder show. I'm gonna watch a murder show.
Yep, that's our theme song for sure. I'm trying to get through all the movies that are probably going to get nominated for things. On Saturday night, I watched Nomadland, which is available on Hulu, and it was good. I wasn't blown away by it, but it was definitely like a really nice story. Frances McDormand was amazing in it. Yeah, so I do recommend it. But it's interesting.
Do you think she's gonna get another Oscar?
I don't know. She didn't win at the Globes.
She didn't?
Yeah.
Well, who won at the Globes?
The actress for the Billie Holiday movie. For Joy.
Well, it'll be a tighter race than perhaps we thought, but I can't wait to see how it all works out. Oh, I've been wondering about that. I Care a Lot. I was gonna watch that. I haven't watched it yet, but I'm very intrigued because I saw an episode of that show Dirty Money, which was about characters like the one that Rosamund Pike plays in that show, where they're sort of like these corrupt like guardians that come in and take over like elderly people's lives because they can't care for themselves according to some mysterious court ruling, and then those people usually just kind of exploit their charges, and they charge a huge amount of money for it, and they really don't do anything except make those people's lives worse. But that story is supposedly like a gonna flip the script kind of moment, like, oh, you took over this person's life and this person is going to make your life hell, kind of thing. So I really, really want to see it. I hear it's really good. Oh, so he said, oh my God, I was going to say, what did you think? And I saw the OMG. I'm like, okay, clearly Walter liked it. I'm definitely going to watch that soon.
Before we get into our normal agenda, I gained several thousand new followers on my Facebook page this weekend. So if this is welcome, we have more people watching than normal right now. But this is the book club for movies. This is a talk that Samir and I have been doing since last March, creeping up on our 1-year anniversary of doing this. And we always start our show talking about a movie that was assigned the previous show. And we talk about what it was like watching it. And then we move on to the next topic. So we will be talking about actor Fred Astaire. Mondays, we always do Man Crush Monday, focus on an actor and their career. But before that, something completely different. We're going to talk about Varsity Blues. Now, Varsity Blues was our pick from Friday. It was one of our Patreons, Crystal. She picked this for our Cult Classic Friday. And this was really a perfect choice for a Cult Classic Friday pick. I hadn't seen this before, very campy, certainly targeted towards like teenage boys. I mean, this was produced by MTV. Crystal, she had messaged me over the weekend saying like, oh, well, actually, she said something like she was kind of worried talking about how this was very derogatory towards women. And, it was. But again, this was certainly targeted towards teenage boys in the late 90s.
Clearly targeted to teenage boys, but it took itself so seriously in all the wrong ways so frequently that I began to believe that this was like a mysteriously perfect example of intentional camp that I never thought existed. It was so insane. Like before the credits even roll, they managed to make like 30 really strange choices. Like I was amazed by like how many like the pig named Bacon, they really set up that one guy who seems very closeted in some way. That his friend, what's his friend's name? I forgot their names.
Wait, there's Billy Bob. There's Scott Caan's character.
He's the shorter one who's like shows up in the police car naked.
Scott Caan.
Yes. There's like there's a one moment where he's miming fellatio on Paul Walker when the coach is praising him. I was just like, oh, okay. He really loves being in this locker room, I guess. I don't know. There were just so many things. Like, I'm like, that's what makes real camp, is when a movie, it's like they really think they're making this powerful statement, but they have no concept of how ridiculous everything is coming off. So I'm like wondering what must have been like when they filmed this. And then the editor who was working on it, they're like, really? You want it like this? Like, have you seen these things put together?
Yeah. Yeah, it was. Yes, that's Scott Caan. He is James Caan's son, and he has had his own career. Not as good as James Caan, but I don't know. I like watching him in films. He's always like a fun, wild. Yeah, he's always a fun, wild person in movies, like the Ocean's 11 Steven Soderbergh films. But oh god, there's so much in this movie too. First off, it was I was talking a lot about Not Another Teen Movie on Friday, and this is one that they heavily draw from for that. And it was fun to finally see this movie and realize just how many scenes, like the scene where James Van Der Beek's dad's like, come on, like you could hit this beer can off my head with the football. They parody that scene. It's so hilarious. Not Another Teen Movie where he just like he can't hit it at all, and he keeps getting like further away. He's like hitting everyone else. They're making the target bigger and bigger, and he's still not getting it. There's a part where they put like his mother up on a lawn chair above his head, and he's like, come on, just whack your mother. And she's up there having a cocktail. Not Your Teen Movie is that's like one of the best parody films ever.
But now that you've seen the source material for a lot of its jokes, it's almost like, was Not Another Teen Movie like super necessary when the original subject or the original films are so ludicrous that they make you laugh just as much? Like, I laughed a lot watching this movie, and I don't think I was laughing in places where they intended us to laugh. I'm sure that there were moments like that in there, but it was hard to pick them out because there were just so many like his friend, who's obviously like the one who's supposed to protect the quarterback on the field, who is dipping his pancakes in peanut butter and then guzzling syrup from the bottle while he's driving. And he's the one who has the pet pig named Bacon. It was just like, there's a lot of choices you can make when you're directing an actor, placing a camera. There's a lot of choices involved there. And it's amazing to watch a film where like they make the wrong choice at every turn. Like, should we do this or this? Which one is the one that comes off? They'll do that one. Every single turn. I'm like, oh, wow. So this is what it's like. It's like a choose your own adventure where you just can intentionally keep choosing the ending where people die. Like, always the wrong choice.
Jon Voight's character as this psychotic football coach was kind of ridiculous.
It's kind of like how he is now. Like, go to his Twitter account.
A little bit, yeah. I don't know. I was kind of thinking like, oh, well, Jon Voight, like he is a good actor or used to be, and then seeing him, this is like, oh, okay, not even he could save this film. There wasn't enough Paul Walker in this movie for me.
Well, it's because he's the star quarterback who gets injured. You can't have him be the focus. You've got James Van Der Beek here playing a football player, which doesn't seem to come
fame
supernaturally to him. Also, can we talk about the jeans? The jeans he's wearing, those horrible, big, baggy jeans that are practically raver pants. Like, that's how much volume they had. I'm like, I'd forgotten how poorly heterosexuals dressed in that day. I mean, a lot better now, but like, when I went to high school, it was definitely like a real like dearth of fashion knowledge there. The most hideous clothes,
Yeah,
most
I
unattractive
remember.
looks
I mean, as
everywhere.
a
It was stuff
kid,
like this.
I was a kid in the late '90s, and seeing older kids, like you'd see teenagers, and they'd be wearing raver pants, and even then, as I was like 9 years old. It's like, what are they wearing?
Even though we both love to shop at Hot Topic, we somehow always made it out of that store without ever buying the rave pants.
Nope, never.
But the
Never.
costume designer in this movie was just like denim and volume because
Yes,
we're in Texas.
everything's big
That
here.
was their whole thing. Go big or go home, and everything was like oversized throughout this movie.
Yeah, I mean, I think there have definitely been better, like, small town high school football films. One that comes to mind is Friday Night Lights. I actually really, really enjoyed that movie. And I'm not really a sports movie person, but I think that actually really, I don't know, the pressure that the kids face is something that I think is made much more apparent in that movie versus this was just like to such a ridiculous level where it's like this isn't even realistic.
Or like the fact that the coach is just injecting what I assume is like cortisone um into these athletes' joints and bodies. Like with the door open, I'm like, it's one thing to we all understand that there's in all sports there's going to be use of drugs. There's going to be some sort of corrupt or maybe not above board tactics being used to keep athletes in tip top shape. That's not a secret, and we know that it happens in high school too. So I guess this movie, they were thinking, oh, we're making this expose type of drama. We're going to show the dark underbelly and the consequences, and we're going to have Dawson telling the story. But like, I'm just like, okay, that's just not how that would happen. I don't think any coach would be so they would be so comfortable in their activities that they would just take needles to athletes in front of all the other athletes, like without, I'm like, oh, whoops, I forgot to close the door.
Yeah.
Or I did this incredibly illegal, abusive thing. I guess I should close that. You didn't see nothing. I'm like, but aren't they still in a school? Like, I understand that all kinds of concessions get made for successful football teams, but at some point, I feel like the level of treatment there maybe went just a step beyond reality. Although, who knows? I mean, where we grew up, there was all those stories of crazy hazing incidents at like Rancho Bernardo High School. And remember that? I don't know if you remember that. That was not good. I probably will not mention it here because could be triggering for some people, but they did some insane things that you can't make this shit up.
Yeah. Anyway, this film was it was crazy. It was fun. I'm glad I finally saw this. If you want to check it out for yourself, it is available to rent right now on several different streaming places. Yeah, it's fun. And if you really enjoyed watching this and some other late '90s movies, I also really recommend Not Another Teen Movie, which is I love that movie. Oh, did not mean to bring that back. There we go. Okay, let's move on. Let's move on to the main event today. Mr. Fred Astaire, always in his top hat and tails. Well, not always, but that was certainly what he was known for being such a very classy, elegant man and dancer. Fred Astaire, like Gene Kelly, I talk about Gene Kelly whenever I can. I grew up watching MGM musicals. I pretty much have always known who Fred Astaire was, even though he was born and died before I was even a thought. But I've always watched his films, particularly his MGM films. And yeah, it's Fred Astaire. Fred Astaire and Gene Kelly. Fred Astaire and Gene Kelly, two of the greats of the MGM musical performers. I love him. I love Fred Astaire. He's awesome.
Well, he was would you say that he was maybe known more for partnering than Gene Kelly was? Because we think of Fred Astaire, we also think of Fred Astaire and Ginger Rogers, a team that made all these movies together.
Wasn't like he was okay with being partnered with people, but that wasn't necessarily what he wanted because of how he started in the entertainment industry. So let's go into the spiel. He was born Frederick Austerlitz on May 10th, 1899, his parents came over from Europe, went through Ellis Island and all of that. His mother always wanted her kids to be in showbiz, and Fred Astaire had a sister named Adele. They, starting pretty early on when they were little, they had a famous brother and sister duo. And I mean, they were really like 6 years old, and they were already known as like, oh, who are these cute little like singers and dancers. The family moved to New York. I think after Fred Astaire's father had lost his job. The name was changed to Astaire because they thought it just sounded better.
Well, probably because they didn't want the associations of a foreign sounding name
that too
attached everywhere they went, considering the somewhat xenophobic nature of American people at times.
I'm trying to get rid of Varsity Blues. Sorry, I keep hitting the wrong button.
It has nothing to do with Fred.
Oh, wait, Varsity Blues. Okay. Yeah, but he was right from the beginning known as this. It was this duo. It was his brother and sister. They were this amazing dance team. They were booked, I think, on the Orpheum circuit. Yes, the Orpheum circuit. Went all around the country. Eventually took a 2-year break, especially when Fred Astaire started, or actually it was Adele, his sister, was starting to get a little taller than him. And that was a concern, I guess, for them being dance partners. Eventually, Fred Astaire was, he made it onto Broadway, was on Broadway for quite a while. Didn't make it over to film until the early 1930s. So he's already in his 30s by that point, if you're doing the math, born in 1899. He had a pretty hilarious screen test for RKO. So supposedly this test, and I guess maybe, I don't know if he was nervous, but I mean, he already had a very successful entertainment career, and maybe he just got nervous, but his thing said, can't sing, can't act, balding, can dance a little. To which Fred Astaire later clarified, he said, actually, I read, can't act, slightly bald, also dances, which I think is hilarious.
A touch less cruel, I guess. He was nervous about his acting, like, I think throughout his whole career. It's kind of sad.
He's a very good actor or entertainer, and he really was a perfectionist. A little similar to Gene Kelly, even though Gene Kelly, his dancing style was a little more like wild and athletic, but it was perfect though. Like everything he did was completely intentional. So maybe people wouldn't think that he was also that much of a perfectionist. But soon Fred Astaire was paired with Ginger Rogers, which was another thing where he was like, yeah, I guess you could pair us up, but like I kind of just, I was with my sister for so long and I kind of want to do my own thing. Nevertheless, they made like 9 films together and were super popular duo. Just if you watch anything of them dancing, absolutely incredible. And there was someone, I think it said something like Fred Astaire brought like elegance or maybe like his dancing ability to Ginger Rogers, and Ginger Rogers to him added sex appeal because that was something that Fred Astaire was lacking, I guess. Continued to just like keep going on and on in his career. He kind of briefly retired in the late 1940s. That only lasted a couple of years. But what brought him back was, and that was because of those doubts he was having of like, okay, I'm getting older. I don't know how much longer, I could keep doing this. I'm already in my late 40s at this point. The movie that brought him back was actually Easter Parade, which is one of my favorites. And I didn't know this, Smear, but actually Gene Kelly was supposed to be in that movie. And I think he had injured himself. And so Fred Astaire came out of his mini 2-year retirement to be in that film. And that's one of the movies I really know Fred Astaire from.
Wow.
Another great Judy Garland film. So then with that, he was back. Continued to be in some of his most famous films in the 1950s, including the film we will be discussing today. He kind of went into another mini retirement for a while. His last really big dancing role was in the late 1960s. Um, but and at that point, like he's in his late 60s. But he acted up through his 70s. Another one of his most famous non-musical roles is in the movie On the Beach, which is a very different role from. I mean, that's
it's
a really
a post-apocalyptic drama.
Yeah,
Have you ever
great.
seen that film?
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
that's
his
the one
birthday-
actually where they had to clear out streets all over the world to make it look like, you know, the world has been wiped out by a nuclear holocaust. And I remember a lovely story from the making of that film, where apparently him and Anthony Perkins became very close because Anthony Perkins was always like, "You're doing great, like you're so good." Like he was very supportive, and Fred Astaire was like, "I don't think I'm a dramatic actor. I don't think I'm doing a good job." And Anthony Perkins was like always sort of like reminding him like what a brilliant performer he was, and telling him how good he is when he in his like he became almost like a little cheerleader sort of for him on that film. And it was just so touching that after all those years in the entertainment industry, Fred Astaire is still as seasoned a performer as is. He still has that same nervousness that every actor who still has the hunger to perform has. They're always concerned if they're doing it right, and he still was feeling that, even though he couldn't sing and dance his way through that performance in any way. It's purely dramatic acting. I was like, oh, there's a humility about him that always comes through that's very warm and inviting. I think that's what really sets him apart, in addition to sort of like the elegant dance style versus the athletic dance style. He even was like, he was older, and he was like a romantic opposite of Audrey Hepburn in Funny Face.
Yeah, was he
I believe, you know, he's still like
25 years older than her, or at least, I think, in that movie.
And it's nuts, but it's like, you know, you don't really. I mean, I know I like the movie, I think, a little better than you do, but I always buy him in these movies where he seems like he should be too old for this person. But there's something about the way he relates to his co-stars that, just like I said, it feels something about it feels warm and inviting, and then he starts dancing, and you're like, whoa, oh, okay,
yeah.
Like we watched a Royal Wedding, I think, a while ago when we were talking about Stanley Donen, and
you watched it in November or January?
I think so.
Another thing about him, I just want to talk about his personal life a little bit, and then going into some of the innovations he had as far as musicals go. During his first mini retirement, he started the Fred Astaire Dance Studios, which are still around today, turned his huge dance studio franchise. Another thing that was sad was that his first wife, they got married in the early 1930s. She passed away at only, I think she was only like age 45, kind of suddenly, of lung cancer. And that was just like absolutely devastating to him. That was around the time when he was working on the film, I think Daddy Longlegs, and he like almost dropped out, like to the point where he was going to pay the studio for any losses they were going to have financially. Just like, I can't do this. I just lost my wife. But he weird. He didn't marry again for several more decades. I think he got married in like 1980 or something. So that, and he died, I believe, in 87. Yeah. So he just like had one last late life marriage.
And he was a smoker and a dancer. I was always blown away by it because he's always smoking in his movies too. And it's hard to imagine he could maintain the stamina to dance as well as he did for as long as he did, doing that. But you know, when we were thinking of what movie to, like, you know, because remember we were thinking like, oh, should we do him? Like, there's so many choices.
Before you bring in the movie, I have one last.
I'm just not yet.
Okay.
I'm just saying it was hard to choose which movie, because when you look at his career, it's just like classic after classic after classic after classic for at least 2 decades. It's like, it's hard to pick just one for tonight.
Yeah, and his entire entertainment career lasted over 70 years. Actually, I think really rounding it up closer to 80 years. Another big thing that he brought to musicals and how they were filmed, especially how they were filmed, was he insisted on a lot of his dances them being filmed in a very fluid, if possible, one take or very few cuts performance, because that was a way where it could really show off, like, this is me dancing. You're seeing me dancing all in one nice fluid take. So he probably thought that was, well, first of all, as a dancer, that was probably easier for him to be like, I'm just going to do this whole thing instead of having to stop and change angles all the time. But that's certainly not something he was known for. Another thing was he insisted that a lot of his musical numbers be something that was really integrated into the plot. Like he really wanted an actual reason for why this number is where it is. I mean, some of these musicals he was in, the plot would involve like, okay, I'm actually on a stage, we are performing, that's why we're doing a musical number. But for something such as in Royal Wedding, that was something, his famous dancing on the ceiling moment, that was something where that furthered the plot of like, he's like, I'm so happy that I danced on the ceiling, because he realized that he's in love. And he never thought
well,
he would.
There was a few musicals that really popularized that. Like the early Ernst Lubitsch musicals were known for that. Meet Me in St. Louis was known for that, because usually in most musicals, including a lot of those dance ones that he was, like, they may have been on a stage, but it's like the story just stops for that number to happen, and then the story sort of begins again. I think that sort of comes together with his desire to have his dance takes filmed his dance numbers filmed with fewer takes, so that the dance itself is what is making your heart to flutter, as opposed to using the editing patterns to create movement. That's interesting though, because you look at a lot of other musicals, or at least as movie making went along, and you get more and more cuts to create a sense of movement, and those numbers really do stand out. Like you saw that kind of with Singing in the Rain. There's a lot of moments where the camera is just following them. It's not cutting from here to here to here to here. And there's like a dance of the camera with the actor on the screen that is like, it adds another element that elevates the work that these kind of performers did on screen, as opposed to a lot of other examples where it's kind of a lot of people arranged in a big frame. There's a lot of, like you said, there's a lot more cutting around things, maybe to disguise somebody who's not a natural dancer, to make it look like they're dancing really well. And I think maybe it was really important to him to be like, no, I don't need those tricks to make me a good dancer. I want you to show them with, it's kind of almost like documentary filmmaking. The fewer edits there are, the more someone believes what they're seeing. Whether that isn't, the way it should be or not, that is somehow the way I think a lot of people perceive things they see on a movie screen. And I think he kind of understood that, which, puts that choice into context. Of course, it's, difficult depending on who's directing the movie. You don't always get to tell the director where to put his camera and when to cut. But the fact that he was as good as he was and had that amount of clout meant that he could make a director change the way they maybe filmed a scene to really capture what he was doing with his body.
And speaking of directors, he certainly worked well with the director of today's pick, The Bandwagon, of course, directed by Mr. Vincent Minnelli, who we have, I think that was in January when we talked about just Vincent Minnelli, but this will be the third Vincent Minnelli film that we have picked throughout our whole Book Club for Movies show. But this came out in 1953. A pretentiously artistic director is hired for a new Broadway musical and changes it beyond recognition. This was nominated for 3 Oscars. Didn't win anything. But I have always loved this movie. Fred Astaire, of course. Sid Charisse, who is another incredible dancer in we've got some funny people. Mr. Oscar Levant, Nanette Fabre. Right. Mr. Jack Buchanan as Jeffrey Cordova in this film. All the musical numbers in this. And this one's a little bit different, where it does have some musical numbers that are actually supposed to be on a stage. They are performing a show. but also integrates those like, we're just gonna seamlessly dance in a park and you're gonna believe it.
And there's also like the famous The Girl Hunt Ballet moment, which merges, the worlds of like Mickey Spillane gangster novels and the Broadway musical, which of course anybody who knows the history of theater knows that there's a connection there. This movie is it's so good because it's saying a lot about what it means to create and what it means to create entertainment for people, what it means for the entertainers trying to do the work. And so it covers a lot of really fertile artistic ground in a really brilliant way, but it's such an enjoyable experience that you're never consciously thinking of those things. The film just sort of tells its story in a specific way. And it's also just visually so like mind-blowing too. It's like a very colorful movie. This is also the movie that the song That's Entertainment was written for. And I believe the songwriters even said that they were basically given the task of trying to like, hey, we want another There's No Business Like Show Business. Can you do that? And they're like, sure. And then 30 minutes later, they had That's Entertainment. Mm-hmm. And that song has become the name of like a series of documentaries about musicals. It's like one of the most famous numbers. And to think that was just like a one-off, we just did that,
done.
And there's a lot of different versions of that song too when you try to look up lyrics to it. This is the definitive version, the one that was written for this film. So this is, this has, I think, all the lyrics that are supposed to be in it. But I've seen versions that have other stanzas added that I don't believe were in this film. But there's a lot to recommend this movie. It's going to be really fun to watch again.
Yeah, for Singing in the Rain fans, this like me, the story, I would assume maybe the screenplay too, but at least the story was written by famous screenwriting couple Betty Comden and Adolph Green, who also did Singing in the Rain and have really add a lot of comedy to their writing too, which is always enjoyable.
This was them at their peak, this period of their careers.
Yeah. This is just like a year after Singing in the Rain came out, so this was very like, and
they could do no wrong right now.
Yeah, I think this was part of the Arthur Freed unit at MGM at the time, who was really known for cranking out these like really, really good MGM musicals. This was really like I would say the peak of their musicals was like late 40s, early 50s.
He gave the directors a lot of latitude. He let these like he sort of had an eye for talent. He understood who could make something special and wanted to make sure that those really talented artists that stood, head and shoulders above the rest of the directors on the lot had the resources they needed, had the freedom to do what they wanted with these pictures, which is the reason these amazing pictures are what they are. I think without a producer that gave them that freedom, who knows what these films would have become. So that's probably like the greatest legacy of his work as a producer for these studios, is letting people like Stanley Donen and Vincent Minnelli like do their thing. And instead of like questioning their decisions, like, what do you need? Maybe not letting them go like way over budget, but not trying to control them and letting them be the artists they are. And as a result, we got these masterpieces of the musical form.
This movie, I believe, is only available to rent. Last month, it was on the TCM app, but like all streaming things, they're always taking things off and putting things back on. But I did not see it on there when I checked this morning. So I think you're going to have to rent this one. Sorry about that.
Check your on-demand, though. Check if you have on-demand services. Turner Classic Movies used to have this as an on-demand option very frequently. So there's a chance, if you have on-demand services with your cable provider, if you have a cable provider, that you can find it that way. I also own it on Blu-ray, so I will still be able to watch it without renting.
Yeah. But really, really recommend this movie. It's just like, it's one of the best MGM musicals ever. So fun, spectacular dancing and singing and musical numbers in glorious Technicolor. It's just it's such a visually stunning film as well. And if you are a fan of other Vincent Minnelli films, this is just required viewing.
It really, really is. And there's a lot of details to catch visually in his films. You are not going to be able to capture every detail on a first viewing. Like, there's so many frames in this movie that you could pause, and there's so much storytelling packed into every frame. There's so much stuff happening in the foreground, the background. Like, it's a movie you can watch over and over again just for the pure enjoyment of it, and really genuinely find something new in it every time. Tons of fun, amazing little details. You know, like we talked about when we talked about him as a director. There's so many, you know, his career as the start of his career as a window display designer really comes through in the way he packs a frame for the screen. And he gives enough room for these dancers to do a really, really incredible numbers. Like dancing this movie is great. I just can't wait. I'm so excited. I will probably put this on maybe right after we finish and then watch it again before I go to sleep.
I'm really excited. I'll definitely be singing songs from this tomorrow. I already have some in my head now I think about it. Yeah, please watch this tonight. Again, available to rent, or as Samir mentioned, see if it's on demand somewhere. Please consider contributing to our Patreon. As of now, we're still taking this month by month as far as we're definitely doing April, but then in April we'll kind of reassess on whether we're going to keep, you know, I mean, we've been doing this for a year, so
right. But we couldn't forget, you know, the month of the award season time. So we have a really fun month planned next month with all films that have won Oscars or been nominated, and we're trying to make a really nice, diverse grouping of those, so you get to revisit films that maybe you didn't ever watch or forgot had won an Oscar, or films that just deserve some more attention. I'm looking forward to doing that. So we do this mostly because we enjoy doing it, and we love movies so much. We met because of that love. We met in school. The movies brought us together.
They did, and they brought us back together, and us doing this.
They did.
I put the link for our Patreon in the comments. We really appreciate it. If you are so inclined, the tiers start at was it $3 a month?
$2 a month for the day player tier.
Or $2
$5 for production assistant tier.
And it bumps up to 20.
And we've got some of our Patreons in here.
Yes, but most of the things we're really pushing those $2 and $5 a month things. Those all add up, really help us out. So we really appreciate it. For this evening, please watch The Bandwagon, available to rent. Tomorrow, we are going to be talking about director Terrence Malick, and Samir will finally be watching a movie I've been trying to get him to watch for like a year.
Because she wants me just to see the beauty that is Colin Farrell.
And it's also a beautiful film by a multi-Oscar winning cinematographer. The film will be The New World. But tonight's The Bandwagon. Join us tomorrow. We'll be discussing The Bandwagon after the film, moving on to a discussion on director Terrence Malick. Thank you all for watching today. If this was your first time watching us, we do this 5 days a week.
So look for the notifications and join us 3:30 Monday through Friday. Yeah, we had some of our regulars here today, Walter, who let up our comments, and Luke. You know, thank you, both of you, for always being here, and welcome to, I think I see a couple of names that I haven't seen in here before. Like Richard, maybe you've seen you before, but
come down to discussing things after the movie. If you didn't like the movie, tell us. We love having an active discussion about what worked in movies, what didn't work. All opinions are welcome. They just need to be, you need to have some things to back it up besides like, I thought it was boring. No.
Yeah, those are not. Yeah. We love debate. We love to talk, but there's not anywhere you can go when you say something was stupid or something was cheesy or something was boring. You know, there's that won't take a conversation anywhere good. So think of something you really want to say. But we love the conversation. So
Yeah, so
please,
don't be
please,
shy.
please keep it up.
Don't be shy. Thank you again for all the comments today. We'll be back tomorrow at 3:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Hope everyone enjoys the bandwagon, and we'll see you all tomorrow.